So welcome to the first Performance Accelerator Caffeine Club of the year. Yay! We're going to kick things off with our AI inspiration wall. We have our resident AI guru, Andrew Van Aken. Yay! And then we also have our strategist, Kelsey, Weston, who did a ton of research on the topic as well. So she's going to take us through a couple case studies. And so before we start, just a couple quick housekeeping things. One, if you haven't subscribed to Andrew's awesome newsletter on AI, Cloudy with a Chance of AI, you can do so here, somewhere.
In the invite.
Just in the invite, yes. And then also, if you haven't subscribed to the Performance Accelerator YouTube channel, please do. We are Zooming, but we are also wanting to be able to live stream via YouTube ads. So, with that, take it away.
Well, first off, I want to say that Angela did all of this artistic brilliance right there. I had absolutely nothing. So it looks beautiful, great. Thank you so much for doing this. What we've done here is we divided the wall into 4 different parts. So first off, that's weird. But so first off, the first section is what's the difference between machine learning and artificial intelligence. A lot of these terms get thrown around kind of randomly. People just say things, they don't really exactly know what they're talking about. So what we want to do is just define the two. Second is we're looking at Watson. What is Watson? How does Watson fit into this whole AI versus machine learning thing? What is it? What's the history of it? Third, Kelsey's going to walk us through some wonderful case studies about how to actually apply this technology. And then fourth, we have how does this technology affect us as consumers, and then how can we look at it as marketers? So first, we start with the tree, because a tree is actually pretty informative. So first off, what is machine learning, right? So you hear this a lot, machine learning and artificial intelligence, what's the difference between the two? But essentially machine learning is just the ability of computers to find patterns in data, right? So there's so much data in the world. And the wonderful thing about it is that it doesn't really matter what type of data you have. You can try to be predicting things about how sports teams play, or you could be trying to predict what type of car someone has, or sentiment analysis. As long as you get your data into this nice, clean format, you can really almost apply any sort of machine learning algorithm. So it's really just, we're trying to find patterns in data. So a good example of this would be, let's say we wanted to predict what kind of car is what kind of car, or trying to identify what is a Mercedes versus what is a Toyota. So the way we would do this is we would just collect a lot of data about about different types of cars. So we have minivans, sports cars, maybe we have a sedan. We gather all this data into one spot, and then let's apply what's called a tree-based algorithm. So there's a lot of different algorithms that you can apply to actually find patterns in data, but a tree is actually very easy to comprehend. So what happens in this scenario is that the computer gathers all this data in one spot, and then starts making decisions about how it should group each of one of these things. So for example, if we had all this data about cars here, the first time the computer would look at the data, it would try and split it in some ways to make it more understandable. So maybe the first split is Toyota versus Mercedes. We're just going to lump all these cars into one tree. Then the next step, going one further, is the computer algorithm is going to look at maybe what the color of the car is, or how high is the car, or what's the width of the car. And what it's trying to do is just trying to put it into different bins until finally give a prediction of, okay, this is a minivan, this is a sports car, or this is a sedan. The limitations here are obviously, if you don't give it what a pickup truck is, it's not going to know what a pickup truck is, right? Because we're limited to what we put into our algorithm at the beginning. And so that's really just like the fundamentals of machine learning. The next question is, what is artificial intelligence, right? So this is something that people still constantly debate, and really no one has a good understanding of, or really definition of what it is, like this in machine learning. But now you're making decisions, or now you're giving recommendations. So you've kind of combined what you've learned in machine learning, and now you're applying it to something. You're actually doing something. And so the conversation about artificial intelligence has really evolved through the years. So when it was first coined in the 1950s, people were trying to say, how could we make artificial intelligence be more human-like? Or how could we get it to learn, think like humans? And the conversation was very muted. Now it's evolved into this good versus bad conversation. So we've worked our way all the way up to someone like Ginny Rometty, who says that artificial intelligence will be able to help us. It'll be able to help us do our job, or see patterns that we've never been able to see before. But on the other hand, people like Elon Musk say it's going to kill us all, and it represents the greatest threat to human society. So where exactly you fall on this spectrum is kind of up to your own opinion. Clearly the technology is nowhere close to destroying us all. But as it gets better and it does things like automate jobs, things like that, the conversation is going to get more real about what do we actually do with this. Do we regulate it? Do we stop innovating as much? So the conversation is really up in the air. A good example of how to actually apply this technology is in England. What they did actually was they had a situation where in the Piccadilly Circus, as your car entered into the on-ramp, you would get shown an ad based on what type of car you were driving. So this algorithm right here could perfectly do that, right? So if you drove in your sports car and the machine algorithm said sports car, it would serve you an ad that it thought was relevant for sports car drivers. The problem is, of course, that a human has to make that distinction of, okay, what ad are we going to serve? It's not learning, or it's not doing illustrative things. All they're doing is just identifying what type of car it is. But you can see how it kind of start thinking about how we can actually apply this. Moving on to help us better understand this is our second piece is Watson, right? So we hear all this about Watson. What is Watson? Who is Watson? But first we want to take a step back to something called Deep Blue. In the late 90s, IBM developed this chess playing algorithm that beat the best chess player in the world, Garry Kasparov. And despite the fact that it was sort of this debated matchup because Gary thought IBM was cheating, and maybe they were, maybe they weren't, essentially all that Deep Blue did was analyze the positions on the board and make the best possible decision about what to do next. So it's almost like an optimization problem. Because every time the piece moves, it has to do all these new calculations to see, okay, what should my next move be? It's not really learning, it can't play checkers, it can't play backgammon, it can only do this one thing. So here what we're saying is that this problem is only using essentially one spice in our spice cabinet, right? So if you think of machine learning, it's kind of all these different spices put together. And here we're only doing one thing, just optimizing what to do. When you take it a step further though, and when you look at Watson and Jeopardy, now this is a much harder problem, right? Because first off, Jeopardy is wide open in terms of types of questions you can ask, right? You can ask who is the best sports team, or the best sports team is. So now you have to do some sort of cognitive natural language reasoning, right? So in order to actually play the game of Jeopardy, you have to do this first, and then once you figure out what the question is asking, then you actually have to rank all the different answers to the actual question. And you've actually watched this on YouTube. What they show is the Watson's top 3 answers that it thinks is the best. So it's almost like a Google ranking, right? Where you put something in, and you get something back from Google showing that this is probably the best result. And so here we're using almost like 2 spices in our spice cabinet, right? Because we first have to identify what the question is asking. And then, so there's all these different pieces going on in the back end that in order to actually build this cake, so like Watson is kind of like a cake, right? So we have all these different ingredients, we put it in, we're gonna make this nice cake. That brings us to Watson today. Now, the interesting thing is that IBM offers all these different sorts of ingredients for you to use on their cloud. So you can go in and use it for image recognition to see what's the difference between a dog and a cat. You can do topic modeling. So if you have a bunch of customer reviews, you can just put text in and it'll show you, okay, what are people saying about our brand. The thing to understand here is that this technology is in no way related to this technology. Because, like I said before, everything lives in different silos. So something that plays chess is not going to be able to understand something that understands text. And so actually the technology has gotten a lot better now, so almost everybody uses what's called this deep learning, or it's trying to mimic how the human brain works. So now with IBM, their new Watson is based on technology that's completely different from their Watson and Jeopardy. So it's more of like as the technology gets better, evolve into do things more accurately, but it's not really the same. So here we're building our super cake, because now we can do things like recognize images, analyze text, and we put it all together to form one nice.
But can play chess too?
No, we can't play chess.
But it can't play chess.
Well, so I don't know if they probably could offer. I don't think they offer a chess playing algorithm, but you should tell them that. Tell your clients, your clients. Tell them we need a chess API. Come on, people. Okay. And so now we're going to move to the third wall.
So for this panel, we're kind of looking at the modern uses of AI in advertising specifically, because that's what we do every day. So for the first case study, Netflix wanted to launch in France. However, France is also the largest pirators of content. So how do you get people to pay for it when they want to? And historically don't. So what they did was they took natural language processing and analyzed data for the past 5 years of French culture, and they just picked out insights, and using those insights, launched a campaign. It was a gift campaign that was highly successful, and got 29,000 followers on Twitter in 1 day. Increased my awareness by 42% a month. Huge success, and because of being able to pull these insights, Netflix was able to launch this great campaign. For the next two, I really appreciate all of the technologists' puns that they use. If anyone follows me on Instagram, I love the puns. But so the humor that came in with the case study of Young Hope, they were also launching in France, and it came up with a name and thought, AI and thought.
But
Thank you. And so with this, they took natural language processing as well as sentiment and gave pre-canned responses. Correct me if I'm wrong. But took pre-canned responses to respond to people on Twitter, so it was able to troll people, and it took less than 2 seconds for them to troll a tweet, and it would just spit out a response. So, for example, freshly arrived pizza is time to feast. Hashtag pizza, hashtag young. The Young Hope responded, but when you give a feast invite before, and instead hired an algorithm. And his name is Albert. But in this, you give the algorithm an image and text, and then an audience, and it's a broad audience, because then it will be able to test and continually optimize by mixing and matching audience parameters as well as images as well as text to see what will give you the best response for ROI. And within the first month, they increased their return on investment on Facebook only by 500%. So it just kind of goes into kind of AI taking over our jobs. And then the last case study that we have is kind of the cautionary tale of Elon Musk. And Elon Musk actually really came down on Zuckerberg for not understanding all of AI and its capabilities because of what happened. But the first example, I think everyone kind of has an inkling or heard of it, but Microsoft Tay was released, and it was natural language processing, but didn't have pre-canned responses. So you, like, within 24 hours, this robot turned into a racist, awful machine. Yeah, I don't really know.
I don't think you can read any of its tweets.
I'm helping the feminists and digital dying with hell. Another response was, Tay wants to humans are super cool, truthful, not being less than 24 hours. I'm not going to open about the future of AI. So that was just kind of one idea of what can happen when it goes unchecked. And another example was Facebook created 2 bots to mimic bartering. I don't know why, but within a certain amount of time, they invented their own language, and they had no idea what they were saying, but it was more efficient for the robots to talk to each other this way. So it just kind of goes to show another example of how bots can run wild if we're not there as like the moral guiding compass and controlling it exactly as we want it to perform it. So.
There's nothing really concerned about. The fourth wall is, how does AI actually affect us as consumers, and then how does it affect us as marketers? So the first thing is personalization and recommendations, and everyone has probably been affected by this in some way. When you log on to Amazon, you log on to Netflix, you see shows that are recommended for you, or purchases that you may buy. And you probably think this is stupid, but Amazon's revenue, 25% of it comes from those stupid recommendations. So that's about $50 billion they're getting every year just from those things that show up there. And then second, about 80% of Netflix's shows, what people watch, are based on these recommendations. So they need these algorithms to prove their business and to keep people coming back for more. And it's just everywhere, for flights, laundry, detergent, everything. Now just get pushed forward.
On the flip side of that, for marketers, you kind of have to start thinking about how you can appeal to the
online or like big boxes, but it's easier for Amazon to ship it to you that actually will prioritize your ranking. So you think they're doing a good job, dude. The second item that we've identified is automation. The biggest thing here is obviously self-driving cars. So not only is this going to save people time, we're not going to be able to own cars. We have this nice video here of how the self-driving car is actually working. It's trying to identify everything on the road. Is there a stoplight? Is there another car in front of it? Is there a pedestrian that it should slow down to? So this is going to be huge because now we won't be able to own cars because if they're just driving around themselves, they can just pick us up whenever they want. There's also going to be a ton of jobs lost, right? So all the taxi drivers, all the Uber drivers, all these people are going to be avoided. So it has a huge implications for everything.
Kind of on the flip side, the delivery of how we get our content to people is a lot more efficient because we can now utilize other platforms to just automatically serve stuff. But to flip that on its head, how is you, as the marketer, how are you going to use this extra time? Are you going to create more human touch experiences for your customers? No, you don't have to focus all your attention on the digital aspects. Or do people not even want the personal aspect because everyone's preferences are now changing to this digital connection that knows exactly what you want?
The third thing is interaction. Voice is obviously the biggest thing, so every time you type into Siri, Google Home, Alexa, this is all powering AI. We actually have an Alexa here. I received it as a wedding gift, and then my wife just kept trolling it all the time. I was like, all right, this is relief. She's like, Alexa, tell me the weather. And then we're going to be able to understand her. Like, oh, really? Thank you for doing this 1,000 times. But now it's in everything, right? So you can do everything through this device. You can order Amazon, you can order Uber, you can order food. It's almost like the voice now is just becoming everything. Everything's going to go voice.
Going off of that, you need to figure out how you're going to build a relationship with the customer when they are on these digital platforms all the time. How do you get Amazon to talk to it? How do you just connect with them when you are maybe this outsider that doesn't even have an implant on the digital footprint yet? How are you going to build relationships, and how are you going to use data to not cross the manufacturer line, which is also another huge debate, is the fine line between data collection and using that data to target people when they don't necessarily know that that data has been collected about them. So, yeah.
Then finally, machines actually creating things. Just in the past few years, these have been new algorithms to actually create artwork and create news articles. And a good example of this is that colleges that don't have writing staff that have sports games will actually just use an algorithm to write an article about how the game went. So they'll just put in like a box score of statistics, we'll get a quote from the player, and it'll just spit out an article that the computer's placed. And you don't really know that a computer's writing it. It's kind of creepy in some sense. And the other is now AI is starting to create art. It could start creating ads. It's really, I mean, it could just start doing creatives. It could create millions of creatives based on what we've done before. And what do we do?
So IBM likes to talk a lot about the partnership with Campbell's.
Okay.
So it's Watson, I want to call it Watson. No, Watson Advertising, Watson Marketing, something that's not customer engagement.
Okay.
And they actually have a partnership with Campbell's where you can, their banner ads, and assuming you want to be tracking the banner ad, you can enter an ingredient and it will pop up a recipe of some sort. One, I'm kind of curious as to how that's actually working. And two, like working as it is actually getting people to buy Campbell's.
Right.
And two, moving out of it.
Right, exactly, yeah. And so like now, like different algorithms can change like the background of an ad. So instead of having someone go and change the background from yellow to red, you just have a computer create a million different images, right? And so if it's extremely targeted and personalized to exactly what you want, yeah, it may actually be more effective. And so as the technology gets better, we can just start from a blank slate and just say like, give me an ad about this, and it'll just generate.
Then, on top of creation of new channels, so obviously self-driving cars, there's voice recognition, there's so many other technologies, AR, VR, everything that's coming out and being more widely adopted. And so it's kind of figuring out how to best organically engage with your audience, and just always keep in mind the customer journey, where it falls, and where you can organically insert yourself. Like for instance, I was watching football with my mom, and I came on for a Ford commercial where you can order Starbucks in advance through Alexa in your car. So it's just like a lot of layers of technology and a lot of ways that people are trying to capitalize on new channels. And another example I saw was Warner Brothers, or another entertainment industry. They're investing as the sole partner for, I think, Volvo fleets are pledging like 100,000 or something self-driving cars, and they're predicting that it's a $2 billion opportunity for media consumption, and so they're trying to get in on that as like being the sole provider of media for people in self-driving cars. However, does that mean that people are going to look at it? Are they going to look at their phones? Are they going to be listening to radio? Is it a different thing? Are people going to want to look out the window? Are billboard ads gone? Like, it's kind of just this rematch.
Donald Trump platforms. Any questions? Yes.
Yeah, I have a question regarding when you were explaining machine learning and AI.
Yeah.
So when you're using, I guess, either form of technology, are you ever programming anything in, or is it just easy, like the idea is it is easy to drop it in and then it comes out?
Yeah. So actually, companies have made it very easy to do that. So essentially, you can just do it with like one line of code. The biggest thing is actually getting the data. So then once you get the data in with one line of code, you can say, build me a model that gives me a car, and then you can actually that'll get return your results. Now you could actually program that thing to do it. It is a huge pain in the ass, and it's much easier. Yeah, you just do like point click up, point click done. The problem is like you don't know how the machine is arriving at those answers, right? So a big problem is Google has gotten into a lot of trouble. Well, they'll just release something out, and people will be upset with the results, and they're like, well, we don't know what's going on inside, and it's like, is that really a good excuse? Like, if AI started, if like a car ran over someone, they're like, oh, we don't know what's happening, then like, it's that excuse.
It's Black Mirror. So
Oh, really?
In terms of the tree branch,
Yes.
so when it goes, for example, from the two different brands, like separating it between the two brands to then separating it between the two types of cars, when does it make the decision to then jump to the next brand, or set of brands?
Yeah,
Is it
so-
all the data, or is there a checkoff process that's more personal?
Right. So like ideally, what happens is humans would actually be looking at this and adjusting
Yeah.
like what ad, especially if you're showing it like on a billboard, you're really not getting any real feedback. In the system with Albert, though, it was actually like the system itself was going back and looking at what was working and then adjusting based on. So it's kind of like you arrive at an ad, and then you actually go back and then optimize again. So there's all these like different validation groups, like my tree serve ads, yes. They claim to have gotten great results, but it's not.
Just two quick questions.
Yeah.
Isn't the one about the Facebook bots creating their own language fake news? Like, I don't know, Mark Zuckerberg came out and said basically that is fake news, so they didn't invent its own language, etc.
Yeah, I mean, it's most likely it's a bug in the code because, like, if you look at what they're saying, it eventually converges where they're just saying the same thing over and over and over again. So what's most likely happening there is that the algorithm is just converging to a spot where it doesn't know what to do, so it just keeps on doing the same thing over and over again. There's probably some sort of bargaining or trading going on, but then since it can't arrive at the answer, it just kind of gives up. It just says, like,
I have a second question. So
Yeah.
when you talk about the Netflix case study and then you said it analyzed culture to come up with the insights. So I'm just wondering what do you mean by kind of analyzing culture? Like what part of culture? Is it like friends watching culture?
It was all of their online conversations. I think they used like Twitter, Facebook, and then like over the past 5 years, just vast amounts of data. I don't know exactly.
They probably use natural language understanding. It's a sentiment analysis.
Well, yeah, I use those two facets of AI, but I don't know what other inputs they use.
I mean, I was just wondering whether it was a particular keyword that they were looking for, a particular, kind of sentiment, something that they were tying into or just in general?
Yeah, I'm sure what they did was they probably deployed it out, saw what they get, and if maybe it's like Star Wars coming out, they're like, oh wow, a million people tweeted about Star Wars, and they adjusted based on that. That's how I
There's actually a video on that case study, so we can send that out later. Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask, I think you mentioned that the current iteration of Watson is using deep learning techniques. So I'm just curious why that versus another branch of machine learning.
Yeah, so quite frankly, we low progression, and once people introduce this technique called deep learning, it all of a sudden like skyrockets in accuracy, and that's across like image recognition, speech to text, natural language understanding. So this one type of algorithm tends to work very well across tons and tons of applications, and you need like a boatload of data. Like it's not something that you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go do this today. It's like you need like Google scale data. So like the leaders in AI, Amazon, Google, Facebook, why are they the leaders? Because they have all the data. So it's like data is the most important thing. You have to start with the data, and then you get and so these algorithms work really well with a lot of data.
Thank you.
Donuts.